So I have been preoccupied in my practice with the idea of virtue and happiness. And this is particularly in having read this book, which I talked about a few weeks ago, The Pursuit of Happiness by Jeffrey Rosen, where he documents the classic Stoic texts that the founders of the United States were familiar with and talked about, and undoubtedly were referencing when they said things like the pursuit of happiness. And then, what is happiness? We're pointing back to Socrates. Happiness is virtue, or what is virtue? That dialogue. For the last several years, my meditation practice has been very sutra oriented. I mean, the path of renunciation and the path of discipline is an important part of how I think about practice right now. And right now meaning for the last few years. You move in these big waves of interest and focus. And it seems to me really important that the practice of meditation, the practice of mindfulness, fit within this broader context of wholesome activity. And so what is that wholesome activity, and how do you cultivate it? And so I've got a ton of videos about discipline, where discipline isn't punitive, discipline is actually nurturing. So what I want to talk about today is this page in my journal, which I think for purposes of YouTube video titles, I'm going to call the algorithm of virtue, or the equation of virtue. I'm not sure, but what I've done is, over that time, there are 4 texts that really resonate, and I finally just put them on the same page together. So one is from one of those letters between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, later in their lives, after they'd both been president, and as old men, they became close friends, setting aside the vitriolic politics of their youth. So that I got from the Pursuit of Happiness book, and I think maybe this is what really is something that's pulled some of these strands together for me. There's that, the Eightfold Path from the Buddha, and from the Bible, from 2 Peter, chapter 1, verse 5, he lays out the equivalence between faith and goodness and virtue. So that's 3. The 4th I'm going to leave for a surprise at the end. But before I do that, I was at church this morning, the First United Methodist Church here in Pittsburgh, and the centering, I want to read this. Here, you can take that screenshot. I want to read this to you. The call to worship. This is a response, call and response, right? So, cosmic wonder, nebular birth, new stars. Auroras paint the night sky with vibrant watercolors. And yet we find ourselves stuck in our unimaginative ways. The singularity tells us a story of infinite potential. Event horizons point to boundaries beyond black holes, and still we believe the limiting lies sold to us by oppressors. As meteors light up Earth's atmosphere with space matter, bring your holy possibility close down to Earth. Light up our hearts with unfettered love. Become with us today. I'm going to put this on my working board there, because that word unfettered is like a navigational beacon for me as I pull together these ideas of virtue and discipline, wholesome behavior, cultivating wholesome behavior. At the end of it is this idea of unfettered creativity, openness, interaction, sort of authenticity. And the sort of the discipline of virtue, what I'm going to talk about today, displaces the anxiety that otherwise comes with sort of the restless, distracted mind. So it kind of all ties together. This sort of open, focused, but totally big-hearted, cosmic. Anyway, so the first part of the algorithm, or the equation, this is from John Adams and Thomas Jefferson letters. We are what we think. Life is shaped by the mind. And it was written like this. It was written as a series of points. We are what we think, which of course is the first part of the Dhammapada. The mind follows what it takes in. We are what we think. Life is shaped by the mind. Happiness requires virtue. But what is virtue? Virtue requires cultivation of habits of self-mastery and mental tranquility. Use reason to moderate ego-based passion. Do good for its own sake rather than the reactions of others. Mental tranquility doesn't mean docile. It doesn't mean zoned out, right? Tranquility. I was thinking about this as I was coming back from church this morning. I was walking back. A rested mind isn't a motionless mind. It's not even necessarily a mind that is free from conflict. I feel restful when I can see the action that's occurring around me. The same way that a wave is in the ocean basin. That's a metaphor that's frequently used in meditation teachings, that our awareness is the ocean and our thoughts or our perceptions or our sort of mental activity are the waves. They're not separate from the ocean. They might seem to be when you're the drop of water being thrown by the wave. Whether it's conflict at work or relationship dynamic or money, which the kinds of things that can drive us crazy nowadays, don't go away, and the importance of them don't diminish, but the restfulness of the mind watching them can change. And I think that's what cultivation of habits of self-mastery, the times that I am most untranquil, that I'm most anxious, is when I've done something that I regret. And the things that I regret are always the things that I've done because I was angry or because I wasn't thinking. I could probably do the same thing, but if I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do, I wouldn't have, right? It's the idea that I wasn't myself, big S, right? That I responded from a point of separateness and potentially cruelty. So don't do that. The Eightfold Path, which is the second section here. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right meditation, right concentration. Right effort is very much, as I was writing in my journal this morning, the and thinking about this video, it's the right effort that is front and center in my thinking right now. Like, with time at hand, what will I do? What's my default behavior? Is it scrolling, getting angry at things that I don't like politically? Sometimes, yes, that is what it is. To cultivate wholesome, right effort, instead of doing that, practice some music, study some Go, study my French. Those are French language. Those are three things that, in a very basic, rudimentary way, if I do those, I'm cultivating a wholesome part of myself. Because those three actions, they may mean nothing to you, then I'm sure they don't. But to me, they actually connect into desires, aspirations that I've had since I was a child and not paid attention to. And now as I get older, there's a kind of a conversation I'm having back with my younger self. Right? For example, studying French. I studied French in high school, which was 50 years ago now. At college, when I was studying piano with a wonderful teacher who was French, it never once occurred to me, it didn't even cross my mind to take a lesson in French. Which baffles me now. Right? So I study French now, and in part I'm looking back to my 19-year-old self and just trying to have some compassion for the person I was back then. Right view, right thought. Right speech. Right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, concentration. So the right effort to me is the linchpin between the sort of the moral path and the meditation path. The right effort to me is where that shifts, the linchpin. And it resonates then with what Jefferson and Adams are saying to each other. It's a hot Sunday afternoon in August, towards the end of August. And this is Best Day Brewing, which is a NA shandy. When I was a kid in England, and I mean like single digit age, 7, 8, 9, you could get shandy, which was a mix of beer and lemonade. It was probably actually only a little bit strong. This is not, there's no such thing as zero alcohol beer. This is 0.5 proof, which, I do wonder whether that, I don't find it impacts recovery at all, but except it is beer, and so it does say to my mind that there is a situation where beer is okay. The situation is if it's an NA beer, but my brain is not that smart, so I'm very careful about drinking the NA beers. We happen to have a bunch of them in the house right now, and I'm drinking them. But I do think it's a slippery slope. I think my brain, the brain of anyone in recovery or living without alcohol, is that you now have a framework where beer resides. I don't have a problem with it, this part. But I won't try a zero proof bourbon because I can see where that would go very quickly. Okay, 2 Peter. This is also laid out as a series of points. Support faith with goodness, goodness with knowledge, knowledge with self-control, right? Self-mastery. They're all in dialogue with each other. Self-control with endurance, endurance with godliness, godliness with mutual affection with love. I started off by saying the word unfettered, a sort of open, authentic, approaching an instant, approaching a moment, approaching an experience, approaching a person, with sort of this open-hearted willingness to see what's going to happen. Right? I have my first principles, but in a dialogue or a video or a conversation or a work meeting, the times that it is more effective are the times when the process begins and then I open and listen. I don't do that all the time. I'm trying to think if I do that most of the time. I know when I've done it and I know when I've not done it. And that ends up this mutual affection and mutual love, right? So discipline, virtue, tranquility, openness, love. And there's nothing vague or amorphous about that. There's nothing passive about it. And there's nothing doctrinaire. There's nothing punitive. Discipline is not punishment. And tranquility is not passive. Maybe that's the summary. So those are three. The fourth, I promised there was a fourth. This is actually from Walt Whitman, from Leaves of Grass. Every atom belongs to me as much belongs to you. Wow. Every atom belongs to me as much belongs to you. I can spend here. Everybody should have a pocket edition of Leaves of Grass. This also has other poems in it. I love Leaves of Grass, but When Lilacs Last and Dorian Bloomed is a poem that I think I keep meaning to approach as a composer. But it's got to be one of those pieces where I'm absolutely confident in my compositional mastery, because I don't want to fuck that one up. Anyway, let me know what you think about all of this, whether there's texts that you have that resonate around virtue, happiness, and then unfettered love. Okay? Keep your wits about you.